everyone, my name is Rafal and I would like to welcome you to another episode how I create this headshot. And before we jump into today's video, I just want to say that I'm back. I took a little bit of break from posting any videos on my YouTube channel. There was a little bit of mess with this entire pandemic and this entire lockdown. So I had to focus on my family and just make things work. But now it seems like things kind of got a little bit to normal, if we can call that way. But I'm gonna try to create now a little bit more videos and focus on my YouTube channel and provide you guys with some videos which definitely will help you to improve your headshot photography. So having said that, this is going to be my last video from that series, and from now on I'm going to try to create a little bit of different videos to give you a little bit more information, to give you a little bit more video footage from my photo shoots. So that's hopefully will give you a little bit of better understanding what I do, and hopefully those videos they gonna look a little bit different and you guys gonna just get more information from everything what I do. So today's video we're gonna talk about this particular image. I really like it. There's a little bit of different lighting setup which we're gonna talk about it. And again, we're going to go through this entire process, how I actually create that image. Then we're going to go through my entire gear list. And then we're going to, of course, jump into the retouching process, which again, in this case was a little bit different. But again, we're going to discuss this step by step. So let's jump into the first step, which is the lighting for that particular image. As you guys probably notice, right away I've used a little bit of different lighting setup. So in this case I've tried to do a light which is more even, and I didn't want to actually create any shadows. I want to create a little bit of like a flat lighting, and I've used two big deep octas, and I actually just placed them on both sides, and the lights have the same amount of power. As you guys probably can see, pretty much that creates like a flat light. And on the top of that, as you guys probably can see on the bottom, there's a reflector which also actually just bounce that light off the reflector, just fill up all the shadows and make this light even more soft. On the background, pretty simple idea. I've used like a regular wrapping paper. I bought it in the dollar store, which actually just cost me like a couple bucks. The one thing what I would like to mention here, if you guys decided to go that path and you guys gonna recreate this idea, the one recommendation is try to get the paper which is a little bit more seamless and doesn't have as much reflection. This paper was extremely reflective. That caused some, I would say, unwanted patterns, and I have to just kind of fight a little bit with some hot spots on that paper, even though I've used additional speed light just to give a little bit of extra light on it, just hopefully to even out. But this light was so reflective that you just probably can see even on that image that there's some patterns. Some people say that this looks good. I personally would prefer if paper would be a little bit more less reflective, and this background would look a little bit more even. But depends what kind of effect you're going after. This could be some option. You can test it, you can see it how it works, but this was just what I actually experienced working with that paper. And basically I just use taping mask to actually just glue this paper to the wall, and that was pretty much done deal. The background was ready to go. So summarizing this whole thing, again, there was 3 lighting setup, 2 deep octas, reflector, plus additional light for the background, just a little bit of touch, red paper on the background just to get this red effect. And that was pretty much everything when it comes to actually the lighting. So let's jump to the next step, and let's talk about the gear. And again, everyone who knows me, you guys probably notice I don't change equipment pretty much for most of my shoot. I use the same equipment. So let's go briefly through it, because everyone who saw my videos before, it's pretty much kind of the same thing. So I use Nikon D800 with my Nikon 7D 200 VR2 lens. I use 3 speed lights. There's one SB910 and there's 2 SB800. Then again, I use Elinchrom Deep Octave 2 39 inches ones. I said here 27, but actually you guys can see also on that image I've used 2 39 inches. So when it comes to the settings, I use focal length 200. That's the usual as far as I go. Then the shutter speed 1 to 160 of a second, f4.5, and then ISO 100. And also on the top of that, I set up my camera for the white balance 5000 Kelvin. So that was the settings, and that's also was the gear. So pretty much kind of similar what I do for most of my actually shoots. So lighting doesn't change much, and the settings also didn't change as much. So that's pretty much when it comes to the gear and the settings. Okay, so the next thing, let's jump into the retouching. So retouching in this particular case was a little bit easier, because basically, as you guys probably can see, there's not too much shadow, so there's pretty even light all over her face, which makes, of course, retouching a little bit easier. So let's kind of go through this entire process. So this is actually what you guys can see right now. This is a retouched image. Basically, I just went through, we're gonna go through some dodge and burn. I did a little bit of frequency separation, but you can really see that there is no shadows. The shadows actually you can see is just from the makeup, but there's pretty much really flat light. So let's go through this entire retouching process. So that was the retouched image, and let's take a look how this image looked like straight from the camera. So I guess probably can see this image definitely needs some work, and it's a little bit flat. The colors are a little bit also like not saturated, they're not vibrant, so I really want to make sure that this red really actually pops. So let's jump into all those steps. So the first step, of course, is just a regular cleaning. So as you guys probably can see, she had really healthy skin. The makeup was also applied properly. So as you guys see, she had some stuff on her face. There's some discolorations, there is some birthmarks, but overall very healthy skin. So the first step was just removing all those most obvious things on her skin. The next step in this entire process was, again, typically I do my first run of dodge and burn. So you guys probably can see all those additional discoloration underneath her eyes, on her forehead. This whole thing got really nicely cleaned up through dodge and burn. Took a little bit of time, but again, was worth it. We don't lose any skin texture. We basically work on some of those discolorations on the face, which just caused this image kind of look not even. Okay, so that was the second step. The next step, we work on her eyes. So I just really want to make sure her eyes pop really well. So again, pretty simple technique, dodge and burn, and just like increasing the contrast of her eyes to just kind of bring this eyes to kind of even more sharp, more visible, more contrasty. So whoever's going to be looking at that image, their attention is going to be definitely drawn into her eyes. The next step of the process, what I've done was a little bit of toning and a little bit of, I would say, giving the image more saturation. So you guys probably can see the image just changed drastically. The reds are more rich. The skin colors got also a little bit more rich. So that was just the kind of main purpose of doing this entire toning and giving a little bit of extra contrast, just to give the image a little bit of more life and just give a little bit of more saturation with that red. Okay, so the next step I work a little bit on her lips, because you guys probably can see from the makeup there's a little bit of mess. There is some spots which kind of like they kind of stand out around her lips, and I just want to make sure this whole thing looks a little bit much more clean and looks a little bit more even. So that was pretty simple process. The next step in my retouching, I did a little bit of liquefying, and again we add a little bit of more shape to the lips. You guys probably can see because they were not even. I want to make sure this whole thing has a little bit of symmetry, and also just a tiny touches on her turtleneck, just to kind of make sure everything looks kind of smooth and nice. Technically I didn't have to do it, but just to kind of give the image a little bit of more symmetry. The next step, I did a little bit of frequency separation just for the background, because as you guys probably can see, there is some shadow coming from the subject, and I didn't really like that because just kind of make this whole thing looks really kind of weird and odd. So I just want to make sure that the background also is a little bit even out. And I also did a little bit of frequency separation. You guys probably can see underneath her eyes there's some spots which were left over, and I just want to make sure they have like a nice even color. Okay, so the next step was dodge and burn, which you guys probably can see there's just a little bit of tiny spots here and there, but nothing major. I just kind of did a little bit of quick soft run of dodge and burn, and that's pretty much just kind of to make sure this whole thing is looked after when it comes to the skin. The next step in this process, I add a little bit of more saturation into her lips. So I use selective color just to kind of bring some of those colors even more saturated, to kind of make this kind of impactful look on her lips, so they look more rich and more colorful, and they a little bit more saturated. Okay, so the next steps, I actually just work a little bit with some selective colors, just to kind of, I wasn't sure if I like this specific actually saturation of the image, so I played a little bit to just kind of scale it down, just give that red a little bit of different tone. So I was playing a little bit with it just to kind of see where I want to actually go with this. So that was 2 selective colors adjustments. So I just want to make sure that this entire color is the kind of the right fit for what I was going for. Okay, so the next step, I work a little bit on the hair. There's some flyovers on the side and a little bit around her neck, so I thought why don't we just kind of clean this up to just make this image even more clean. So the next step, I did even more, just a little bit of liquefying around, just to kind of give the hair a little bit more shape and give the image a little bit more symmetry. And the last step, I actually just clean up a little bit the background, so the background looks a little bit more even. I didn't like this big shadow on the bottom, and I just want to kind of remove this and make this background look a little bit more clean. And yeah, so that's pretty much the entire process. It seems like there's a lot of steps, but when you actually just go with those steps, you actually kind of creating this specific path for what you actually are looking for. So that was before, that was after. So definitely the image has a little bit more saturation, the skin looks a little bit more clean, and there's specific, I would say, parts on her face like eyes and lips just give this image this more kind of like beauty look. That was before, this was after. So I hope you guys like this video. If you have any additional and any specific questions regarding this lighting or this retouching, please feel free to contact me, and I'll be more than happy to answer all your questions. And as I said, I'm working on some new videos to give you a little bit more, as I said, footage from the photo shoots and there's definitely some very, very interesting things coming up. So again, thank you for watching. Stay safe, and I'll be in touch with you guys very soon. Bye bye.